Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Rob Phelan. I am with Choosify Foundation, who are graciously hosting the event today, also with the Simple Startup. And I am joined by three amazing guests who are going to talk to us about how to start your business or your side hustle this morning. If you have any questions, please do plop them in whatever chat feature you are using, whether it's YouTube or Facebook. We would love to get those questions answered. And if you know anybody who would be interested in joining us on the stream, send them a quick message and say, hey, get on Facebook, get on YouTube now. There's a great stream going on where we're going to talk about businesses, getting started and getting those questions answered that are maybe stopping you from getting started this summer. So without further ado, I'm going to let my guests introduce themselves. So go on ahead. Erica, do you want to start?
I sure will. Hello, everyone. I am Erica Terry, host of the Classroom to CEO podcast, educator, consultant. I'm super excited to be here. I help educators just like you start a successful side hustle so that you can live a life that you love waking up to on Monday mornings, because we've all experienced the Sunday night blues and it sucks. So I don't want that for you. Rob, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Erica. Vincent and Stephen, you guys are backwards. Let me fix that. There we go. Stephen, do you want to introduce yourself next?
Absolutely. I know about those Sunday night blues, Erica.
Yes.
I'm not going ever back to those. I'm Stephen Worley,
No.
founder of lifeskillsthatmatter.com. I've been working for myself for 20 years before there was amazing resources like Rob put together to help people start side businesses or do their thing long term. So I'm a solopreneur business coach. I help people build kind of single founder businesses as a coach, a consultant, a digital product, that sort of thing. And I happen to believe more and more of us are going to be working for ourselves. That is the future of work. And I think the pandemic just gave us a preview in what that is going to look like. So if you're doing this today for yourself, you're ahead of the curve. Good job. Thanks, Rob, for having me.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And Vincent, last but not least.
Hey, everyone. I'm Vincent Puglisi. I'm the founder and the owner of Total Life Freedom. It's a mastermind community for entrepreneurs, both starting out and for very experienced entrepreneurs. I had all the struggles everybody else had being in a job I didn't like, not knowing how to get out, having money problems in terms of doing it, and going through what we're going to talk about today, building different businesses to create a life of time, money, location, freedom, which I think a lot of times the money gets talked about, but the time and the location doesn't. The time freedom is the key for us, so we can spend the time with our family, do the work that we love doing, and most importantly, maybe not do the work that we don't want to do. So looking forward to this. And thanks, Rob.
Thank you. And just so everyone knows, my name is Rob Phelan. I work with Choosify International Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to personal finance education for all underserved communities in the US. I'm also the founder of the Simple Startup, which is basically a company that helps people start up businesses. And I specialize in the 10 to 18-year-old market. So if you are under 18 years old and you're thinking, you know what, I want to start a business, I'm the person to help you do that. And then, these guests are going to be wonderful speakers today to help maybe guide our thinking, because I think you are all ahead of me in terms of transitioning out of a full-time position. I am still a full-time math and personal finance teacher first and foremost. And then I also have these side businesses going, or I call them side hustles. But I know the word side hustle is kind of getting like a mixed review at the moment in terms of whether it's the right word to use. Is it kind of being over glorified? So I do want to talk about the why a little bit. Like, why did you guys take the leap? Because Stephen, I think you're the longest one out of full-time work. Vincent, you seem to focus mostly on freelancing. And I remember seeing that in your book that you're like, freelancing comes first and then you're kind of more of a solopreneur. And then Erica, you've just kind of recently made the jump, right? From full-time, or are you still working in education? I forget.
I'm still working.
Still working. I know you're close. You're like consulting at the same time. It's like you're almost there.
Yes. I work full-time as a consultant, yes, for a company.
Stephen, I think our job today should be to get Rob and Erica to quit their jobs by the end of this call with their business. That's right.
A lot of them. I always ask them, like, what's holding you back? That's one of my favorite questions to ask.
Vincent, I'll call you after. I'll call you guys after the call and give you the scope.
Okay, so let's go there first, though. Why did you do it? Why did you guys go down the path of entrepreneurship or side hustles? Why did you start creating income for yourselves instead of just focusing on a 9-to-5? Who wants to go first?
Sure. I'm going to be honest with you, everybody. It was made for me. I got laid off election day 2000. I was working in the media industry, worked for a .com, part of the .com bust. And believe it or not, it took me 5 years to accept that I was working for myself. I was good at it, making more money than in my last job. because we're so conditioned to get a job, to work for somebody else as the ultimate in our financial security. And I think many of us are starting to realize that is just not true anymore. I now, after 20 years, I feel like I have much greater financial security than I would having just one income stream. I mean, think about it. If you lose your job, your income is gone overnight. I think Vincent probably shared this, and Rob and Erica, that we have multiple revenue streams now. Everything can go away. It's possible, but it's not probable. Mm-hmm. So I think more people are going to be like me. We're taught to work for ourselves. Then a crisis intervenes. And I've interviewed over 500 solopreneurs, and most people make this change because of a crisis. Healthcare, something with their family, economic, like it was for me. And we all just went through a mass existential crisis in the last year. And I think more people are now open to this conversation than ever before in the many years that I've been doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the job security or being able to work for yourself, like how many people this year were laid off, were furloughed, had their hours cut, had their salary cut, and you lost income in some way, and you just really had no control over it. Like that was just somebody from above you saying like, this needs to happen. And your two choices are to accept it or to walk away and try and find something else. And for a lot of people, even that choice doesn't exist, because we know from anyone who is in the personal finance community as well, that a lot of US adults don't put themselves in that position where they have an emergency fund to allow themselves the space to take 2 to 3 weeks off work to go find something else. Even that amount of time, we don't have it, and it kind of locks us into our jobs. All right, Vincent, what do you got for us?
Desperation. That's what it was. It was absolute desperation. I was in a job where it was a job that I loved. I was a newspaper journalist. Stephen, I came from the same world as you. I remember the 2000 election. I remember that night eating pizza in the newsroom. I luckily or unluckily did not get laid off that night. I kind of wish I would have. But 5 years later, I was at the top of my field in that world, winning very high prestigious awards, but still making very little money, making $15 an hour and having a baby, and realizing I got a 3% raise as the top person in my field, and with my wife 8 months pregnant. And it was that moment where it was like, I can't keep doing what I've always been doing and relying on that. And I came home and I called my father, and he gave me the best advice in the world, which was, you have a skill, but you're not using it correctly. And I said, what do you, and he said to me, he goes, you haven't listened to me already. Hopefully you'll listen to me now. And I was desperate enough to listen. And I said, what do you mean by that? He smacked the arrogance out of me, and he said, you've become a really good photographer. You weren't, and you have become that, but you're settling for $15 an hour and benefits. And he said, you could be shooting pro sports, you could be shooting weddings, you could be shooting corporate, commercial, anything you want to do. You can name your price. Your income has no limit. You can control your time, but you're settling. And when you hear your dad tell you that you're settling, it's a hard, and you have a baby on the way. We started our business that day not having any clue what to do. That's how it started.
That's awesome. And it's like, at what point do we start realizing, you know what, our parents maybe do have some wisdom locked in there somewhere? It's not always there. I mean, there's a point where you're like, no, my parents don't have it all together. But at the same time, there is just that experience to fall down or fall back on. Now, I love that. And you went into this in your book as well, that the book, by the way, is called Freelance to Freedom, an awesome book. Highly recommend reading it. But that you have the skill, you're an amazing photographer. And if you are working for somebody else, then they are profiting from your skill. And just by default, they have to make money as well. So you are going to make less than you could potentially make working on your own.
Rob, I never got that as an employee because I was trained to be an employee. Mm-hmm. Never. It wasn't until I went into the business world that I realized if they're paying me, and I was getting paid very little, right? But you have people that are on here right now making $90,000 a year and still not knowing how to figure it out. If you're making $90,000 a year, you're probably worth $400,000 to $450,000 to your employer. They wouldn't hire you if you're only bringing in $90,000 a year. Why would they deal with all of it? So you need to be bringing them 3 to 5 times the amount. Now, if you take that skill, because you obviously have a skill that they're paying for, and you went on the open market and you did that, and you didn't do well, you did 50% of what you could do, you're still earning $275,000 a year. If you do half of that, still screw up a lot, do bad with contracts, learn, you're still making more than you're making in your job at 1/4 of your capability. Most people don't realize how valuable their skill is because they've settled just like I was settling.
Yeah, that's just it. Like, guys, like, you got these skills. And I think, Erica, we've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. we have these skills, particularly educators. I feel like, we maybe don't tick that box of our employers are making more off of us than we could make off on our own, because they probably aren't making any money off of us at all. But there is still a ton of skills that educators have. And I think you saw this as well when you made the leap into kind of starting to work for yourself and consulting. So what's your why? Why did you do it?
It's funny that there's a common theme. I had a baby, and that changed everything for me. At that time, I had struggled with infertility for 10 years. I had worked my way up to chief academic officer, but I was traveling 2 or 3 days a week. When you're at the top, you're working 50, 60 hours easy. And, after struggling for so long, finally being able to hold this precious baby in my arms. And I just was like, I don't want to give her that life. I want to be present. I want to be a mom that can, show up to every school event. I wanted to be a mom. That was my priority. So in that hospital room, I made up my mind, that I was going to do something. I didn't know what that something was at that moment, but I knew I had to do something different. And so a few months later, I walked away from that position. I took a huge pay cut because I was still in my mindset that I had to have a job for these benefits. But I started consulting at the state level. And then from there, I used the extra time that I had to start building a business. And I did everything wrong, as we're going to talk about, but it ended up right. And that's what happened. I had a baby, y'all.
And it's those pivot points. And I wrote a blog post about this recently, that we as humans love transition points for making changes in our lives. So it's one of the reasons why New Year's is one of the biggest moments for people to start new resolutions, to try out new things, businesses, gym memberships, whatever you want to call it. And it's actually one of the reasons why this particular webinar, I said, hey, summer's coming. Let's start a business, because summer is another transition period for a lot of people. And for some of us, that transition period is forced upon us. So it's a crisis in terms of being laid off. You have someone get sick. You get a drop in income, whatever the reason is. A baby's coming on the way, which is going to eat up a lot of your maybe disposable income that you were used to having. So now you need more. And we decide, okay, now we got to do something. So if this is the transition point for you, summer coming, you see this webinar and you're like, you know what, I've got that bug to try something. That's our goal for today, is to get you to actually say, yes, I'm going to try it this summer. So I think I want to point out that we don't have to commit to a full-time entrepreneurship experience from day one, right?
No.
Mm-mm.
But I will add, I like that you said try it. I'm a big believer. The best way from my life experience to conquer fear is to tell your brain, we're doing an experiment for the next 30 days, the next 60 days. You don't have to commit, but we'll reevaluate after the end of the 30 days or the 60 days. But I will say this. I think a lot of us get really excited about ideas and we want to talk about it and think about it. But you gotta do something. I even tell people, even if it's just 20 minutes a day or at least 5 days a week, that is better than trying to go all in and get too massive. The more you can make this part of your life, that is how you are going to grow and actually show yourself that this is going to work.
Okay. So, that brings me to the next point, which is the first steps that we take. So you've been working full time. You haven't really tried anything entrepreneurial yet. And you're like, I want to start. I want to do something. What would be the first step you would take? Vince, I'll start with you.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can go with this, right? We can talk in different directions. What I love to talk about to begin with is kind of a bridge. And a lot of people will go to, well, I really want to go into this world. And I'm not saying you can't do the dream business. What we've learned, though, is if you can take something that you already know and you can bridge to that, you picture there's an island you want to get to. This beautiful island, but there's a bridge to get there. You're on the mainland. Most people just don't get to the island. What happens is the bridge that takes them there. For us, it was that photography business. It was we were skilled photographers. We knew the world. We also knew we can take these skills and transfer it into another thing that pays more money and gives us more time. That was the first thing. So we went from working 230 days a year to working 25 days a year. So if you can take a journalism career where you work for 8 hours a day and shoot weddings 25 times a year, same skills, same cameras, same lights, same vision, but now I'm making twice as much in a fraction of the time. What I've done there is I've taken the same skills without stressing about learning something new, took it to a field, and you can see this with consulting. A lot of people in business, I coach a lot of people into the consulting world from their jobs. where, okay, now we took us there. Now, when I'm working, just in my example, 25 days out of the year plus editing, I have a lot more time to think now. I have a lot more time to come up with ideas. When that thing got us set with money and time, this next business was built from that, because I'd go for a 3-hour walk and I'd be like, ooh, wouldn't this be cool? And then when I finally got bored of that world, which will happen to me because I'm ADHD and I will get bored, I have everything in place to build the next thing. And that's what we always keep on building on the next. But take something that you already have, lowest hanging fruit, and build something from that. It gets rid of a lot of the stress that comes with, oh, I need to learn something completely new, or it's got to be something different. If you're already good at it, see if you can start earning money on your own that way, and then we go from there.
Love that. And Stephen, what do you want to add to it?
I want to double down on what Vincent just said. Vincent this morning did a video for LinkedIn I'm going to share in a couple of weeks about the simplest way to start a business. The simplest way is do what you already know for who you know. Because there's so many other learning curves in business that you really want to try to make things as familiar as possible to boost your confidence.
Yep.
And the starting points that I see, it happens time and time again. I even start before, what is my business idea? I ask people, tell me about your schedule. What's your time look like for what you want to do? It's like everybody can talk and think about what they're going to do, but I want to see how much time do you have every week to start working on your business, whether you're going to think about it, do some research, whatever. Again, even if it's 20 minutes a day or an hour a week, and you need to put it on your calendar. You are now your most important client. And you need to treat it as such, yourself as such, and start to think about, and then people are like, what would I do with my time, Stephen? Number one thing, so the number one thing we struggle with when starting business is managing ourselves. That's why I'm talking about, like, got to carve out some time for this. Second thing we struggle with is meeting people, whether you're an extrovert, introvert, I don't care who you are. It is amazing. I've worked with so many people, we pathologically want to avoid meeting new people on a regular basis. And that's what business is all about. It's about serving other humans. And I always tell people, you don't have to build your business like I did. You don't have to do social media even if you don't want to. But you need to identify your outreach habit. How do you like to meet people? And how are you going to do that consistently? How are you going to get better at that? And that should not be a to-do list item. That's a habit.
Yeah, and tell them what you're doing. Like, meet people,
Over and over again.
tell your network what you're doing, and then anybody new you meet, tell them what you're doing. That's all it takes sometimes.
Can I add something that I think so many people, and I agree with that, but so often we're caught up in what we want. How you're going to be successful in business is by focusing on what other people want, and everybody wants to tell you what they're doing, but nobody asks what the other person's doing. I'm starting this business. I'm doing this. Everybody's telling me that. I spoke at a conference one time, and I literally came over to each table, and I was like, what are you struggling with? For a half an hour, they told me their story. Then I went to go to the next table. They're like, oh, you're so great to talk to. I didn't say a word. I just asked them a question about themselves. Nobody asked them about, if you could be interested in what they're doing, they're going to then really be interested in what you're doing as opposed to just pushing it out there. So not to saying don't do that, but I think being interested in others is going to be a key to getting started.
And I just want to double down on that too. I completely agree. It's just people, it's in our humanity. We want to make it all about ourselves because of what we know. But business, as I always tell people, you got to marry a problem, not a solution. Like if you have a business idea right now, you got to go ask people you think would benefit from them. Ask them about their frustrations or challenges, as you just advised. And you might be surprised. You might come out with a better or different solution than your original idea, because we now live in an age where we can build our businesses in collaboration with the people that we want to serve. I even tell people, ask them how much they want to pay. You can do that now.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I love, just to jump in there as well, I love when Stephen said, do what you know for who you know, because even like as an educator, we all take for granted, the teaching that we do, like planning lessons, all of those skills that we naturally take for granted, they flawlessly integrate. Like we can build a business off of teaching alone, and then solving those problems that you've experienced for yourself. Like you don't have to go out there and try to figure out what people need. Think about your own journey. Think about where you struggled when you first started teaching, or whatever it is that you're doing, and how you were able to overcome that problem. And you can start your business right there, helping others who are struggling with that same area overcome their problems too.
So it's like, if I was going to marry all of these ideas together, it's something like, take a look at internally what you do already, what you enjoy doing, what skills you have. That's a great place to start. Then look outside of you at what problems do people have, and listen, observe, stop talking and start listening, and just see, okay, what are people complaining about? Where are their stress points? Where are they kind of getting flabbergasted? Where are they saying, you know, this is just such a pain for me. I don't like this. Anything you can think of like that. One tip I give to my students in the Simple Startup is go into social media groups, pages, and search for the word help. If someone's typing the word help and you search for that word, you can probably get a list of problems that every person is struggling with. As a teacher, you know, I create teacher resources on Teachers Pay Teachers. I go into my teacher groups and I search for the word help, and I'm like, okay, where do people need help? What resources can I create to solve that problem? And it's a very quick turnaround solution. And then the final one I really want to go back to is that island, dream island, and building the bridge to it. You can have a dream for what you want your business to look like, but you need to then kind of figure out, well, what are the steps to getting there? You can't go from where you are right now to dream business in one go. It's, you could try, like absolutely you can try. You can borrow a ton of money. You can buy the shop front. You can get all the stock. You can open the website, but you are going to run the risk that it's not the right idea or the right way to solve that problem for your customers. And you could end up with something that people don't really want, which is going to cost you a lot of time and a lot of money as well. Versus if you say, well, what's that basic version of this business look like? So can I take that skill and freelance on the side a little bit? See, do people actually want me to be a wedding photographer for them? And what kind of wedding photography do they want? Because I mean, Vince, I know when you did that, you noticed that the traditional style of wedding photography wasn't what people really wanted. They wanted that story. What is it, photojournalism? Is that what you call it?
They thought they did because that's what everybody was doing. But our skill was in journalism. Our skill was in telling a story. So we basically walked in, and this is to everybody that already has a skill in their job. We walked in before we even shot a wedding. We said, well, they're not shooting, to get technical, they're not shooting all the getting ready stuff. They start photographing when the bride's just getting dressed. And they stop photographing when, like, after the first couple of dances. As a storyteller, I go, well, there's all these moments in the morning that they're missing. And there's all these moments in the evening that they're missing. So immediately we said, as soon as we started shooting, on our website, we put the last hour. This is how you stand out. What are you doing that can stand out? We put on our website a gallery called The Last Hour. It was images that were just shot in the last hour of a reception. When all the other photographers had gone home, because that's what everybody did, we stayed till the end. And there was pictures of the dad being carried off on a chair and emotional crying. And people would be like, they'd hire us. And we had photographers mad at us because, like, now we need to stay later because you're changing the game. We were new to the business, but we saw what they were missing. I think a lot of people can see what's missing in their own industry and then go fill that void. We immediately said, what void needs to be filled and how can we fill that? And that was the beginning of it. To your point also, Rob, when you start off with something that's not huge, not the dream island, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. We're all going to make a lot of mistakes. I'd rather make mistakes along the way small so that when I got to the dream island, I didn't screw the whole thing up there. Right. And a lot of, if you go right to, and not saying you can't, there are people that go from the mainland to the dream island. It happens, but you run a bigger risk of not knowing what you're doing yet. And if you blow that, you blow the whole thing.
And I do caution you guys, like if you hear that person going from rags to riches in one day or in a year or something like that, those are the stories that make the news. You don't hear about the hundreds of thousands of people who didn't do that in one day, or, you know, the work that went into it before that moment of fame happened. All right. So Erica, maybe we've figured out an idea now. We kind of like, all right, I can figure out a problem to solve. I know what my unique selling point is, which is what Vincent was just talking about. Like what sets you apart from that competition? What's the first step for you in like getting off the page? So like you maybe got your notebook out, you've been writing down all these ideas, or you've got a note in your phone or whatever it is. How do you turn that now into something real?
So I like to think of it as the power of one, and we've already talked about it today, but it's like serving those people that you know. You just need one person to say yes. And so even when it comes to like coaching or course creation, don't invest all of your time creating this massive course. You put it out there and nobody buys it because it wasn't what they wanted. Instead, you want to find that one person that says yes, coach them through the process that you're teaching, because you're solving a problem. So you're going to empower them to achieve success. And as you are working with them, you're getting feedback immediately about if this strategy worked or this didn't work. You're creating your tools that you're going to share. And by the end of that experience, you've created your first product with feedback and you have a testimonial. And so it's really just finding that one person to say yes.
Love that. And actually, it popped up in my Facebook feed today. Like, I had a memory from last year that popped up and was like, hey, everyone, I'm going to run this simple startup summer camp. That's going to be a digital camp that's going to teach entrepreneurs from 10 to 18 years old how to start their business. And for me, that was just a total front. Like, that was just an idea. I was like, there's no product yet. I hadn't created a course, and I just put it out there with an Eventbrite, which is a free platform to use to sign people up for something. And I was like, I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to tell people like, hey, it's going to be a 6-week course that will take you through the process of starting a business. And if people sign up, then I'll make it. And so at that point, I had nothing. Like, I just had like this idea. And rather than spending weeks creating a course that could potentially not sell, I sold it first. And that was the huge point for me. Like, it sold out. And I was like, okay, now I got to make this course. Right. And I started making it. I made sure I hit my deadline. All right, Stephen, what do you got? So we've got the idea. We want to start, and baby steps seems to be kind of one of the general things. Get feedback. What else can we do?
Yeah, and just to build off of Erica, you get to the point, kind of the first step is, I think I have a general idea what it is I want to do. And don't worry about Rod Swain, if it's all figured out. It's not going to be all figured out. That's an ongoing process. You're always refining. To what Vincent said, next step is you want to find people. And also, one of the first things you'll do for yourself is make a list of everybody you already know who you think could benefit from what you think you want to do, or they know a lot of people who might be able to make some introductions. And then go listen to them. As Vincent said, we always overlook the people we already know. Don't reinvent the wheel. And then that next third step is, what is the simplest version of what you can create? So people can start interacting, and then when they start interacting with something that you created, they can start asking questions. And I'm with Erica, even though we live in the age of digital, I'm a big believer in in the first phase of your business is doing what I call the handmade version of your business, human to human. Do not go buy Google ads and Facebook ads and Instagram ads and put up a landing page. You have no idea what copy to even put out there. As you listen to the people that you are working with over and over again. I always tell people, you want to go find at least 20 people before you do anything else. Go listen to them, because they are going to start guiding you into like exactly what do they really want? What is really painful that they're willing to pay money for? And most importantly, back to Vincent's advice, you're going to listen to them. What's the language that they're using to describe their problem? How do they want it solved? And eventually that's the language that you're going to use in your email marketing, your social media, and other people are like, wow, this person really gets me. I feel like they're inside my head. And they're not. They just heard you over and over and over again. And that's what I love when I ask, what's holding you back? And they're like, I'm going to stump this guy. And I'm like, heard that before, just a slightly different way. One other caveat I also want to point out, I think a lot of times when we're starting our business, we're like, everybody else is a wedding photographer. There's all these other teachers starting a business. The 4 of us at the end of the day are teaching people how to start a business. But what I want to really emphasize here is I believe our mass market is disintegrating into what I call infinite niches.
Totally.
From a marketing perspective, you are more unique than the rarest of diamonds. This is humanity shot at you. This is it. And even if there's 1,000 other people doing what you're doing, they're not doing it like you. They're not putting out the same energy vibe as you. And so that's what I also love about starting a business. I often call it the most elaborate self-development exercise, because you got to be honest with yourself. And your business, as you go through it, it's going to keep smacking you in the face. And you're going to be like, oh yeah, all right, I really don't like this. Or this is what I'm really good at. Or this is what I really need to learn about. Keep leading and listening into that. So just in summary, I'm just kind of summarizing the steps here, but make that list of, first schedule time every week, make a list of people you already know, go interview them about whatever ideas that you're thinking about, see what they think. And then, as Erica said, do this simple homemade version. If you're going to be a coach, consultant, or freelancer, what can you just do even at a phone call, just having a conversation before you can create anything.
Yeah, I love that. Vincent, do you have anything you want to add to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's something where I think we overlook the idea of failure. We come from a world where, at least I was not good in school. And it wasn't good for me for the first 17 years of my life, but it was good for me for the rest of the time. Because failure wasn't a big deal to me. I failed so much that I got used to it. And it was almost expected. I think a lot of people are afraid of failure. I think a lot of people will not start because they're afraid, well, what if this doesn't work? What if, I do this and it doesn't happen? It's the best thing that can happen to you is to learn from what you're doing. And I think if you're at this spot and you're thinking, well, my mother-in-law is going to be watching, and if I fall on my face, I'm going to be embarrassed or whatever. The greatest thing you can do is try something out, not get it right, and learn from it. But we're trained in school you got to get an A. Well, if you get an A, it means you can have failures. It means you have to get it right. Whereas in this world, which nothing wrong with that in academia, but in this world, you have to get it wrong. You have to get it wrong to learn. And I think if we could learn, like I always say, it's how I started my career. If I'm going to fail, because I thought I was going to fail when I started photography, I had nothing to base myself on in terms of success. First, I was 23. There was no success in my life up until that point. But I said to myself, if I'm going to fail, at least I'm going to fail at something cool. And it was something that I wanted to do. Because it's before journalism, it was sports photography, which was a part of it. I'm going to go be a sports photographer. I'm going to be on the field with my heroes. I'm going to live the life that I want to live. And instead of watching on TV, I'm going to travel with them and be in the dugout. Well, I had nothing to think that was going to work. Probably going to fail, but I'm going to fail at that before I'm going to fail at being an insurance broker, which I didn't want to do. So if I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail at something cool. So allow yourself to fail and go after what you want to do, because if you don't fail, my goodness, you can build that life that you really want. But failing at something cool it got me through it.
I love
but failing is
that.
so uncomfortable.
Yes.
The more, but it's I know you're going there, but the more that you do it, the less uncomfortable it is. And I think we're not used to it. And that's why it's uncomfortable.
Go on, Erica. You were about to add something very insightful, I'm guessing.
Yes, I was going to add, because I was the opposite. So I was the A student and I was a perfectionist, and I wouldn't turn in a work until I thought I was going to get an A. So I brought that attitude over to business, and I was that person that every word had to be perfect. The landing page had to be perfect. So I would spend months in perfectionism, and I had to shift my mindset. And now I tell myself every day, done is better than perfect. And it's with that, like overcoming that fear of failure, overcoming having to be perfect, and saying, you know what, I'm going to get it done. I can always come back and tweak and change, because it's never going to be perfect. And you definitely are going to learn from those areas that you fell in.
And guys, failing is not fun in a lot of cases, particularly in the beginning, if you are not used to it. So if it's something that you're listening to us now and you're like, when was the last time I tried something where there was a very high chance of failure, or maybe a 50-50 chance? And if it hasn't been recently, then you're not getting uncomfortable enough to grow. And the only time you're going to grow as a person is when you get uncomfortable. You have to push your mind, your body, whatever it is, your mental state, beyond what it already does if you want it to grow into something bigger. So if you're looking at this or you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I this idea of failure doesn't sound really great to me. That's kind of an uncomfortable feeling. I don't like that. That's good. That's where you want to sit, and you want to sit with that, and you want to keep going regardless, because that's where success lies, on the other side of that feeling. All right. So if we're thinking now, got the idea, I've maybe got some steps into what I want to do. So I've got the basic version of my business, and I want to get started, but I want to start telling people about it. So you said reach out to the people you know first, listen to them, get maybe 20 people and tell them what your idea is, and see what feedback they give, what questions they ask. Because if you see the same question popping up over and over again, that probably means you're not explaining that part of your business very well, and you need to think more about it. If you're getting negative feedback from 1 or 2 people, would you stop?
Oh, no way.
No. I mean, one thing listening to this conversation, this is why I teach people how to start a business using life skills, which was a real risk. I was just like, even my inner voice is like, are you crazy, Stephen? Come on. There's a certain way you're supposed to teach people about starting a business. This is what I tell people. My number one mantra: to people I tell them every day, say to yourself, stop asking for permission. It is the greatest social disease of humans. We constantly, endlessly are worried about what other people think of us. We dedicate way too much attention, energy, and time on this. You need to start being aware of it, and you need to start saying to yourself, how can I start doing this less and less every day? Because if you can start doing this less and less every day, and as Vincent said, start embracing mistakes and failure and just lean into your curiosity and don't worry about what other people think. You know why? Because they're going to be stuck in their heads doing nothing while you are stumbling forward. Who's going to get somewhere? You are.
Yeah. It reminds me of that, was it The Man in the Arena, that poem? Who wrote that? I'm like blanking on the president.
Oh, that was Roosevelt.
Roosevelt, yes.
Yep.
Great. If you're ever looking for something motivational, it's like hanging up in my bedroom, which is kind of sad that like I don't know who wrote it off the top of my head because I see it every single day. But The Man in the Arena, wonderful like script to have. I think LeBron James had it on the inside of his locker for his entire career. Is like, I'm the person who is trying and potentially failing, and at the end of the day, that puts me in a better position than someone who's never tried anything at all. And that's what you guys have to think about. Is like, step outside, try something. If you fail, it doesn't matter. You still learned something, and you still did something that not everyone else has done. There's a lot of people who are freelancing now, people who have side hustles. The numbers are going up. As Steven said, it looks like society is going to probably trend that way, that a lot of people are going to start taking control of their own income, whether it's through freelancing gigs on something like Fiverr or Upwork, whether it's doing something like Vincent does with like freelance photography, where you're just kind of creating your own income. We're going that way for sure. And you've got to try it, because if you're afraid to try it, you will end up stuck in these positions that you don't particularly enjoy. They don't light you up. They don't pay you enough, and we don't move forward. So if you're listening to this, I'm guessing you're like, I want to move forward. I want to get more income. I want to try something that really excites me. Let's do it. All right. So what's next? What would you guys do next? You've got the idea. You've let people know.
Really, really quickly, the number one way to grow and to get out of your head is you got to start hanging out with people who are doing what it is that you want to do. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. I just interviewed Rachel Rogers, highly recommend her book, Why We Should All Be Millionaires. She's on a mission to help Black women become millionaires. And she also said the number one thing is you got to go hang out with people. Like that's how humans are designed. Don't think that you're going to come up with all the answers for how you're going to change. Just start hanging out with people who are trying to build their side business or working for themselves. And lo and behold, things will take on a life of their own. But if you stay in the world of just hanging out with people who are employed, you're going to grow much more slowly.
Steven, that's a beautiful point, because people don't see that we're in that world. You don't realize that the people in that employment world, not to trash it, but they're not comfortable in what we're talking about. That's why they're not doing it. So they're not going to really feel, they might have a dream to do it, but if you do it, it makes them look bad and lazy. So they're going to stop you from doing it. I can tell you this, and I can call it out. My mother-in-law, we don't see eye to eye on these things. I can say that because I know she's not watching this. She's not interested in it. So I can call her out. She is not the person I need to listen to on this. She did not, I love her, but she did not encourage us. She was worried about her daughter. She literally said to me, is my daughter going to live under a bridge? That's what she said to me. And I said, and I laughed about it. And they said, well, what are you going to do about health insurance? That's what everybody's probably thinking. Mm-hmm. And I said, I can buy it, right? She didn't know that you could buy your own health insurance. When you come from the world of employment, you don't know what all the options are when you get, I can buy my own health insurance. So if I make way more money, what's the difference if I spend this much money on health insurance? I don't need to get it from my company. That stops people all the time. But the people Stephen, like you said, the people you hang around with will stop you. When you get around people that talk about this stuff all the time and are problem solving and figuring it out, you go, not only do I have more momentum and energy to do it, but you're probably also connected to other people in this world who are going to say, well, hey, you need to meet this person, right? You guys need to you need to be on this podcast. I can tell you, in my employee world, nobody thought about any of that stuff. They just didn't want to get fired.
Yeah,
that's why I hang around with all you guys. Like, you guys have pushed, each one of you have pushed me in some way to do better than what I have been doing beforehand. And I really appreciate that. And I hope that you guys watching are getting that kind of same feeling. Where do we find these people?
And I'm going to jump in because it's when you find those people and you connect yourself to like a membership group, like you find, first of all, that person that you're admiring, right? And when you stay on this island by yourself, you look at them and all you're seeing is their day 10. You're still on day 1 and you're comparing yourself to that. It's not until you join, if they have, like, if you see someone doing what you want to do, connect yourself to that person. Join their membership, join their mastermind. And once you get involved in that community, what you're going to discover is that they failed 50 million times before they got to the place that you've been admiring for so long. And so it's hearing their journey, it's connecting yourself and hearing everyone else in this group talking about their failures too, that makes you realize like, okay, it's normal to fail, but they kept pushing and they got to where I'm trying to go. And it was when I started connecting myself and, getting engaged in membership groups that I realized, okay, I don't have to be perfect. Like I can really make this happen. And it was that decision to surround myself with like-minded, we call ourselves entrepreneurs, that helped me to grow my business phenomenally when compared to where I was just trying to do it on my own. So definitely connect yourself to that person that you're already on their website all the time.
Rob, that was a big thing for me. Like I had joined a couple different masterminds and memberships because these are the people that were doing it. And a guy that I met, his name is Bill Convos, had a great line. He said to me, he goes, and it wasn't about entrepreneurship, but I learned it and I've taken it. He goes, I never wait in line. And I said, what do you mean I don't wait in line? He goes, my time's too valuable. So when he goes to an Ohio State Buckeyes football game, what he does is he walks to the front of the line and he asks the guy in the front, he goes, what are you buying? What are you getting? He goes, I'm getting 2 hot dogs and a soda in front. He goes, hey, if I buy it for you, will you get me a pizza and a couple of Cokes? He goes, of course. He'll go to the front of the line and he pays for the guy's food, gets his food. 3 minutes later, he's sitting in his seat watching the game. He goes, my time's too valuable. I pay to get to the front. And I said, that's exactly what this is. Because if you just join, any group, a Facebook group, a free one, and there's 10,000 people in there, it's a bunch of knuckleheads, I'm sorry, giving you bad advice because they're in this group. Every time I've paid to be a part of something, whether it's a conference or a mastermind or whatever, I'm meeting people that are elevating themselves, that are pushing themselves ahead, whether it's low tier or high tier. There are people that are willing to invest in themselves. And that was a huge thing for me. So paying to get to the front has been a catalyst for me to, and for others to push forward.
Can I add to that? Because I've noticed this as well as it's not about money. What we're doing when you are making the decision to invest in yourself, and I think a lot of times when they're doing this, we're making this investment for the first time, we really struggle because we haven't made this type of development, development investment in ourselves. Yeah, we burn piles of money getting degrees though. It's interesting.
Yeah, true. Good point.
To me, it's those are the people who are serious then. They're like, I am tired of wasting my time, to Vincent's point, and I want to do this. I want to make this investment in myself because I'm serious. So when you take out your wallet, you are saying, I'm really serious about this because I'm parting with money and I have to figure out how I'm going to get that money back, as opposed to just always settling and doing anything free. I've paid to go to conferences, belong to membership groups, and I've never regretted one of those decisions. And if it's not working for you, if you don't feel like you're getting your money's worth, go find another one. Go find one that is lighting you up and that is moving you forward. But you will grow so much more quickly by being in this community of like-minded people that also decided to spend money on themselves to get better.
Stephen, to your point, and Rob, I just want to mind me cutting in real quick. The reason why I'm here, and the reason why I was even on Choose FI years ago, was because I went to FinCon. I spent a good amount of money to go to a conference in Dallas, and there, Jonathan and Brad were there, and it was just starting, and we had a great 45-minute conversation. And from there, they said, I want to read your book, and Jonathan read the book, and then, hey, when the book comes out, I want to have you on the show. If I would have just been on the internet, just kind of typing around on Facebook, never would have had 45 minutes that we got to know each other. That every step of the way in my development, whether it's online or in conferences, you go somewhere and you've separated yourself because you're willing to take days away from your schedule, money out of your bank account, stay in a hotel away from your family. The influencers of that field see that as opposed to the thousands and thousands of people that don't. And that's an amazing way. And now that the world's starting to open back up again, that was a huge thing for us.
And guys, if you have followed the Simple Startup, you know that I'm a huge advocate for starting as cheap and as close to free as possible. So that reduces the amount of risk that you need. And there are times where spending money is a wonderful investment. So I want you to kind of take both sides of this. We all offer courses in this group, and we see a ton of value in taking those courses, even though in my course, I will advocate to you to start for as close to free as possible with your business idea. So building information, building skills, building yourself is a wonderful investment. You will get that return on your investment. I also want to throw out a word of caution too, though, that there are a lot of people out there who are offering membership groups and coaching and stuff like that. And you do need to do your homework and make sure that you are signing yourself up for someone who is actually legit.
Actually cares about your success. And
yeah, like
it's not bragging about how much money they're making off the community.
Like, did any of you watch the Netflix series Money Explained?
No.
Okay, so new series on Netflix. Awesome for learning a little bit about money. There is one in there that talks about like Ponzi schemes, pyramid schemes, MLMs, and then coaching is actually listed as one of the schemes that are out there at the moment because there's just so much bad information out there. And I would encourage you guys to start kind of like how I started. I started listening to as many different sources of information as possible. I started listening to podcasts. I started reading books. I started watching YouTube channels. I follow people on social media. And that's how I surrounded myself with people who were in the mindset that I wanted to be in, because I couldn't really find many of them locally. You don't find a ton of entrepreneurial people in education, unfortunately. So I started finding them in other places like that. And then once I felt like I knew enough about someone to trust them in the sense that I want to learn more from this person, well, that's when I go invest my money. Like, Vincent, I probably would not have bought your book if I just come across an ad on it. But the fact that we had met before, you had taken the time to talk to me, I was like, you know what? I want to see what this guy's got to say. And that's what motivated me to say, okay, I'm going to find this book and read it. And it was an awesome read.
It's such an amazing point, because like a coaching business, it's a low barrier of entry. Anybody can start a coaching business today, and you don't know if they put the money in, it makes it look slick, if they're any good. Like you said, connections, referrals, word of mouth. That's, if I'm joining something, it's because I know other people in it. It's not because I go on a webinar and I see somebody and they can talk very slick and I go sign. It's not that. There's 5 other people I know that are getting results from them. I think I think there's a really double-edged sword with that, because I believe in it. But Steve, I don't know if you have, but I've been burned. I've been burned.
Oh, well, I mean, I think the other mindset I often advise people, it's because when you start your business, you are going to be hiring people, even if it's like a VA one day, or you might have partners, or you're going to have a collaboration. So the way I look at this is you're hiring a potential coach or a coaching community. So you should look at multiple candidates. And actually, before you even do that, you write a little list for yourself of like, what are your most important values that you want to see reflected in a coach that you might be working with, or a community? And what do you need? What are the questions that you really want answered? And really approach this as, because this is your money. You want to make sure you have a good event, just like anything else, buying a car or going to college or anything else that you've ever bought in your life. You want to do the research because you are hiring this person or entity or this group. And you want to make sure that you're aligned value. You want to make sure you're getting your money's worth.
Just to make one point, and I'm sorry, just be careful. If you're going to invest in yourself, a lot of people will say to me they want other people to invest in them, but they're not willing to invest in themselves. And I was at that point. And if you're a coach, for instance, if you're not willing to invest in that for yourself, you're never going to get over the hurdle of other people investing in you. You have to be able to do that and say that. You can be hypocritical about it. I had to go through the same thing.
Absolutely. And just to jump in there really quickly, when you think about investing, think about have a clear understanding of the problem that you're looking to solve. Like, what is it that you need help learning about? And then when you join that community or you find that person, always keep your goals in mind. Like, remember what it is that I want to get out of this group. And that way you are focused. It's great having a community and being able to bounce ideas. But when you have an understanding of, okay, this is the problem I have, this is the need that's being met, then you clearly can connect the money that you're spending to helping you to overcome. I call it cutting the checks to go faster. So Rob is offering a class or a course on how to start a business close to free. I could spend a month Googling to figure it out, or I can cut that check, take his course, and he gives me all of the tools that I need.
Yeah. And that's it. Like where can you spend money that accelerates the process as opposed to is you can't substitute for hard work and grit. Like you can't buy success in that sense. Like you still are going to have to put a lot of your own time, your own effort, your own energy. You're going to have to learn as well. You can't buy your way to the front on that particular thing.
Totally.
So, make sure that you are coming at it from that perspective as well. Like this is not something you can just throw money at and you will become successful. There is going to take time, energy, effort, a big learning curve for a lot of us if this is your first time stepping out into the entrepreneurial world. And be prepared for the fact that your first idea may not be your most successful one.
It probably won't.
I mean, Erica, we talked about this before. I think I'm on business number 7 or 8. I think you're on multiple numbers as well. Stephen, how many of you started different ventures?
I lost track. I mean, it's been over 20 years. And I mean, I think the other ways, another trend, I wonder how you all feel about this. I think another trend that I'm seeing is that your business might not be forever. You know how there's always like this business was established in 1894. I don't know if like that's really going to be a thing anymore, because I mean, people do buy into, back to what we were saying, in terms of credibility and trust. They want to know that you're serious and that you've really done a lot of research. You have a lot of experience with this, but you might have temporary projects that might just be a project that you have as like a little mini business in your business. You might do it once and that's it. So I think we might have much more, I call them on-demand businesses. So I think that's something to look out for too.
And I think that was the overarching goal of this webinar, is to convince you guys at home to try something this summer. You're not committing to a lifelong business. It doesn't have to last decades. Say summer's coming. Let's take the entire summer, so June, July, August, and you're going to try something. You're going to commit to it for 3 months. So you're going to come up with an idea. You're going to put some steps in place. You're going to tell people about it, get their feedback, start it. Actually start it. Like start selling to people, see if someone's interested in basically trading their money for what you're offering. And then if they're not, ask them why. And if they do part with their money for what you're selling, still get feedback from them. What did you like about it? What would you like me to offer in addition to this? And you continue to grow that business into what your customers actually want. And then at the end of the summer, like put an end date in your phone, in your calendar, and say, at this point, do I want to continue doing this or not? Is this just going to be a little side hustle that it's a short-term thing? Is it something I'm only going to do during summers? Is it something that I want to just do on weekends? Is it something I'm not really excited about this anymore? Like a lot of us discover that as well. We try an idea out and it's like, I thought this would be really fun, but it's actually a lot of work. It doesn't really light me up. Let's go try something else, or let's revert back to the drawing board and see what we can come up with. Anyone want to add to that? I think that was kind of like
just the worst thing that's going to happen to you. I'm leaning into the camera. The worst thing that's going to happen to you is you're going to learn a lot more about yourself and how to manage yourself. You're going to change your perspective on money and your time. You're going to meet new people, maybe make some new friends, and you're going to learn probably some new skills. That's the worst thing that's going to happen to you. And you can put that on your resume or talk about it in future interviews that you tried to start a business, because I tell you, that impresses people that you're a self-starter, that you tried things, because most people don't.
I tell it to my students all the time. Like if you're talking about that first interview where you're going for a job and you don't have a ton of experience behind you, or your college cover letter, if you want to go to college, that's the thing that's going to stand off from all the other people who are trying to like go for the same position or the same scholarship or whatever it is.
And Rob, people want to see it. Our kids, if you see on social, my son has a tarantula and a scorpion, and he goes out and people hold it and he gets tips for it. When we were in Florida, he was making $150 to $200 a day in tips.
I was seeing this on Facebook, and I'm like, this is awesome.
What would happen is, and Nolan, our middle son, would be doing balloon animals. So they're next to each other, right? And I'm like a drug dealer counting up their money because there's so much money coming in, and I'm turning my back. And one guy came over and he put $10 into his cup, and he goes, "That's because of what you're doing. It wasn't for the balloons. It was because they love seeing entrepreneurs and kid entrepreneurs going out there and doing it." People gave them money simply because of the action they were taking, not even what they were doing. So it was a really good example of like people in our culture want to see our kids and adults doing this.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. Like I see that every time I see a lemonade stand, I have to go up to it and like get something from them, even if it's the worst lemonade in the world. I love what you're doing. I'm gonna support that. Okay, we have a couple of questions that I want to get to before we wrap up today. Danny, who is watching, asked, where did you all learn more about marketing for your products? Like, so how many of you guys have any sort of formal education about marketing?
I mean, I have an MBA, which I would not recommend. Speaking of like the cutting the check, Erica says, like 2 years of your life, and I found a way to pay only $50,000 instead of $100,000. If you want to work for yourself, highly recommend not getting an MBA.
Right. And I think that her question might be connected to a question above. So she asked, can you talk more about where you all have met these influencers? And I think she gave marketing as the example, like where did you all learn more about marketing your products? And so for me, just to answer that, when it comes to like, where do I find influencers? It comes to me thinking about, okay, what is the problem that I have? So, okay, I want to start using Facebook ads, right? So let's use that as an example of marketing. Facebook ads, I'm on Facebook, they're coming up 50 million times. So I'm paying attention to like what's popping out at me, and when I see the ad, I'm just like, wow, how did they do that? And it's then, taking time to learn more about that person, connecting. Like DMs are magical tools, guys. You can learn so much just from asking, like, do you do your own Facebook ads or do you use a company? Like people will tell you what it is. And so just paying attention, like it's already people out there doing what you want to do. And so when you find those people, don't be afraid to connect to them, connect with them. And, join their free group. If you're not ready to invest in that free group, pay attention and, see if they're legit. And then once you get the nod, like, okay, this is he or she's the real deal. Then that's when you start investing in yourself.
Yeah, I feel like I just did that with my children's book that I'm releasing. I started reaching out to as many different authors as I could. And I was like, what did you do? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? I'm thinking of running a Kickstarter campaign for it. So I started following all the people who are doing Kickstarter campaigns right now around children's books. I just reached out to them and said, what's working for you? How did you design it? How did you overcome these particular problems? And I've just been getting like marketing in children's books and Kickstarter 101 from just asking people about what they did.
Yes.
But I like that where you just are just asking. That is the other number one thing I always tell people. We resist asking for help.
Totally.
And I want you to think of your entrepreneur hero right now, and I want you to go do some research on them. And I want you to see how much help they received over the years to get to where they are. You need to do the same thing. Never stop asking.
Or like Vincent said, ask them just about themselves. People love talking about themselves. So if you just say, how did you do it? Tell me about that. They're very likely to come out and tell you that story because they love sharing their knowledge. How I guess, how proud do you feel when someone comes to you and says, look, I love what you're doing. Can you tell me more about that? You're like, oh, someone actually values what I did, my experience, my knowledge. And of course I want to help them out. I think the majority of people you meet will want to help you in some way.
We don't do that enough. I got 2 Instagram messages yesterday from people who read my book, didn't know who they were, read my book, quit their jobs over the last year and cited it as a huge influence to them. Now, who do you think I want to help going forward? Somebody that took the time to read the book, take action, and then come out to me and actually thank me for it. These guys, I'm like, let me know what you need. Let me know. Let's have a conversation, as opposed to somebody coming up to me and be like, hey, how do I get my business? How do you, and somebody looking for free advice. I don't mind that. I'll do that. But when you can you talk about mentors, like Danny asked for influencers. If you can connect with an influencer, whether they even know you're alive or not, take their work, make a success from it, and then go back and tell them that you made a success from it. There's no better way to connect with influencers that way. That's how I've done it in so many different ways. That's one to her question. And the other thing is happy customers is your best market. If you have customers that will rave about you, the whole raving fans, if you just focused on them, you'd never have to worry. But what we do is we're like, oh, I got to get bigger. I got to scale. I got to go bigger. But you leave them behind. But they're the ones that are going to tell their friends about you. If we just continued focusing on them and didn't worry about everybody else, we'd be successful. But a lot of us, we want to go too big too quick, get too successful too quick, and we forget about the people that got us there.
Oh my gosh, guys, there's so much we could talk about. Cause like that's the whole idea of like niche marketing. Like if you're telling me that everybody wants to buy your product, I'm going to tell you haven't thought about it enough. You have to be able to identify who that person is that's going to want to buy from you. I always imagine that like spinning like faceless avatar that just doesn't look like anything right now, and you start assembling it. Who is the person that wants to buy from you? And if you can't narrow that down beyond just everybody, then you haven't thought about it enough. But that is a conversation that we need to come back to. So we're going to definitely do more of these webinars over the summer. There was one question that I wanted to get to that we haven't talked about yet. We had one from Shelby, which was about figuring out an idea, something that excites us, something we're passionate about. We've talked about that. Philip asked about, how do you build that network and get yourself out there? We've addressed that. Ryan asked, what is the fastest way to kind of, he basically is having a problem with imposter syndrome that I'm transitioning from a full-time career. I think he said he was an engineer and he wants to go into tutoring algebra. Like he wants to do an education business, a tutoring business. And he's feeling that imposter syndrome of, I'm not a trained teacher. How do I do this? Where do I find this confidence to do that? So how would you guys address that? Because I think we all just said we don't have formal training in marketing. I don't think, Stephen, you kind of do, but
I really do. I would never want to use their advice. And also I'm curious, like Vincent and well, you're an educator, but a lot of people ask me like, did I get certified as a coach? And I always tell them like, nope. I'm like, and then even the people who are enrolled in our accelerator, I'm like, well, why did you hire me? They're like, because you've done this for 20 years. And I'm like, yep.
Certifications, I hate to say it, I joke about it. It's a joke. It's like, because I don't want a path. I want to build my own path. I want to be the one that makes the mistakes. I don't want to just follow a cookie cutter formula. I'm not saying that's the case, but so many people think a certification is going to do it for you. No, getting better at what you're doing is going to do it for you. Having clients that really benefit from your work is going to do it from you. And to the question you had asked, can you go back to the question about, because I
absolutely.
In terms of the imposter syndrome, I'm going to be very blunt. Get over it, because it's such a ridiculous thing to do to yourself. I had my first coaching client ever. I had imposter syndrome, and he really wanted my help. And I said to him, I'm hemming and hawing. I'm like, well, I'm not Tony Robbins. And he said, I can't afford Tony Robbins. And I was like, that's the best thing you could have ever said to me. Because I realized in that moment, I just need to be a couple steps ahead. And I was a couple steps ahead. Ryan, you don't need to have formal training. You need to be in a position that you can help them get where they need to get to. That simple. It doesn't have to be a certification. A lot of times it shouldn't be a certification. It doesn't have to be formal training. That's not often the best way to do it. If you have a skill and you have an area of expertise that you can pull somebody from where they're at to where they need to go, first of all, that's number one. But as you're teaching them, you're going to learn more and you're going to get better. So now you're going to be at step 4 and they're going to be at step 2. So you can then take them from 2 to 4. And I think we overthink all this. Everybody has imposter syndrome. We all do.
Everyone.
Get over it. That's the quickest way I could say.
And even though Vincent threw out the word expertise or expert, like we often think like, well, that means formal certification, a degree, somebody has recognized us with an award as being like the top. Like it's not. No. You just have to be marginally better than the people around you, and you are a perceived expert in that area. That's all it is. You need to be able to, as Vincent said, take someone from step 1 to step 2. If you're on step 3 or 4, you can do that because you have done it already. I mean, I am not a multi-billion-dollar entrepreneur. I don't have a publicly listed company, but I can help you get from step 0 to step 1 when it comes to starting your business. And that's what I specialize in. When you're ready to go from step 10 to multi-million-dollar company, I'll probably send you to somebody else because that's not me. But at least that's all you need, guys. You just need to be able to take somebody to the next step based on the knowledge and experience you have. Or if it's a product, your product just needs to be something that solves a problem for the people around you or the people who are interested in buying it. We have unique selling points. We have something very special about us, as Stephen said, and that's the fact that you are the person working in this business. Nobody else can say that about their business.
Can I just share one quick other perspective for Jeremy?
Sure.
I often work with our accelerator members on this and saying, listen, do 3 case studies. You might do it for them for free. Just work with 3 clients and say, I really want to document this process, because you're just trying to figure out how you're going to be working with people. And really document it so that you have the goal of understanding how you're going to work with people, and then you can get a testimonial from each one of them. And then come up with a price for your first 5 customers. Kind of see how that stage goes. You might, charge less than you would like to normally. And after you kind of learn after that 5th customer, then raise your rates again for customer 6 to 10, and so on and so forth. So at least it provides a path to, as your confidence increases, so does the amount of money that you're asking for. And then people are kind of paying for what they get. When I did our very first accelerator 2 years ago, it was for $500. Today it's $2,000, because we slowly kept incrementally raising our rates as we kept refining our system and improving it and making it better. You could do the same.
All right. So now the opposite side just came in as well. I do want to hit this because we are past our hour. So we will be ending shortly for all of you at home. But Johnny asked, opposite. I want to talk to somebody who knows more than I do, or at least we feel that they know more than I do. How do you sell yourself to someone who you think is actually more of an expert than you are?
I will say, I think Stephen just gave the secret too, that I was going to connect what he said to that question, and that's offering your service to that person for free. I know I had someone that was trying to get testimonials about copywriting, and she had, opted into mine. And when she came, she had examples of how she could improve my sequence that I had. And so, of course, I'm like, yes, I'll work with you. She had gave me some examples of the work that she had done. And it's like, yeah, if you can highlight how you're going to make the sequence better and show me, of course, I'll work with you and give you a testimonial. And so it's, embedding yourself in their community and then saying, hey, you might not know this, but you can make this better by doing such and such. And I'm the one to help you do that.
Yeah. And it again comes back to that return on investment for your time. So I highly discourage people from selling stuff for free if the reason you're doing it is you're like this imposter syndrome, like, oh, I can't charge for my time. I can't charge for this. I don't know what I'm doing yet. Try and avoid that mindset. We do have a problem as beginner entrepreneurs with charging what we are worth. And even if you are giving a discounted price, you're at least charging for it. And I do encourage you to start there, unless it's something like Erica's situation where you're going to learn from this experience and you're getting expert advice on how to improve it. So yeah, start with a lower price if you feel uncomfortable charging a higher one. But I do encourage you guys to do your research. What are people in the market charging, and charge that, because you're offering something that's the same, if not better, than what everyone else is offering.
I will give a different perspective.
Go.
Just from our experience. Everything we've done, we started out doing for free. Every bit of it. And a lot of people will say, oh, you never do it free. Every business we've had, whether it's photography, something related to it, course, coaching, everything we've done, as a coach, I did dozens of free coaching calls just to learn if I wanted to do it. And I learned that I was getting better at it. And the more I got better at them, then I gained the confidence to charge for it. A lot of times we're told, right, like, don't ever do it for free. I don't agree with that, because I never would have gotten started in each way. Photography for me, it was a year and a half of shooting just to get better at shooting. And sometimes I did it for free for somebody else. Now you have to do it on your terms. That's the thing in terms of doing it for free. If I'm going to do it for free, if I'm going to do 10 coaching calls, it's going to be because I'm going to get experience to be a better coach to then later do it. Seth Godin talked about this. The first 150 speeches he gave, he either did for free or he paid for it. Now he gets, we emailed him about a conference. It was $50,000, right? I think it worked out for him, right? I think it worked pretty good. But the first 150 he didn't get paid for. Now, if he came in there saying, I need to get my worth in the very beginning, it might not have ever started. So I think there needs to be a healthy balance there, because a lot of us, when you have a conversation after a couple of drinks, after we spoke at conferences, like, yeah, I've started for free too, right? They'll stay on stage not to do it, but so many people have. So I just want to give that. I'm not saying always do it for very long, but if you do it strategically, it works.
I guess it's not, you're not getting money for it, but it's still not free. You're getting something back. So you're doing coaching calls, and you're getting the experience back, and you're also potentially getting feedback, testimonials, reviews, advice on what you could do better. Like that's worth something.
It is.
It may not be physical cash, but it's worth something. So
that is. And when you think about it, it's that testimonial is going to sell you way more than if you were out there trying to sell on your own. And so you may have done the service for free, but that testimonial is valuable.
Erica, to your point, the first wedding we ever did was very cheap, had the most amazing testimonial. That testimonial on our website 3 years later booked us a wedding that was 7 times the amount. But it was for a low priced wedding, but nobody saw on the testimonial how much they paid. They just saw the words. And so Rob and Erica, that's an excellent point. It's not free. Doesn't mean there's just because of money involved. It could be testimonials or experience and what you're trying to get out of it.
And never stop asking for testimonials. I think there's like this little checklist of like, oh, I have 5 and on my website now. I'm good. After every time we run our accelerator, we ask, would anybody like to leave us a video testimony? And we keep adding them there because, to Erica's point, your best salesperson is your best customer.
Yep.
Because they can talk to somebody who is like them and they feel better about it.
I love that. Did we answer Johnny's question about how to approach them for advice and tuition? Did we answer that?
How can I sell myself?
Well, I gave my example of how I was approached recently, so maybe that answered it. Or
and I was going to say,
I think
Vincent's advice is like, to me, it's just like go interview people, like say like, well, what is your problem? What is it that you need help with? And then understand it and be like, this is how I would approach it. And they say, yes, go for it. You know, I mean, they're talking to you for some reason.
I'm wondering, and maybe I'm wrong, if he's asking like, how does he approach somebody that he needs advice from? But maybe I'm seeing that wrong.
Oh, okay.
I think there's, how can I sell myself, my time, my labor skill to somebody who knows more than I do?
Yeah, I'm not.
So it's like, if I'm pitching myself to Tony Robbins, how would I do that?
Gotcha.
When I'm way down here.
I think you'd have to think about the value you can offer. So like, what problem are you solving for them that maybe they could solve on their own through their own skills, their own experience, but they don't want to because they're focusing on another area, or you're able to offer something slightly different in that scenario. So yeah, focus on the problem. And if you feel like, you know, I'm trying to pitch myself to a market that is more experienced than I am, and I'm really struggling to make sales there, maybe also shifting your target market. Can you find a different group to pitch yourself to? Because that's one that you can change very easily. If your business is not working, one thing you can ask yourself is it the right product? Am I solving the right problem? And am I talking to the right people? And sometimes just shifting who you are talking to can make all the difference in your business.
Totally.
I want to remind everybody, we all know something more than everyone else. And we also know a lot less than everyone else.
In other ways.
I can't tell you how many times that I've been at conferences and been talking to somebody who I think is like leaps and bounds ahead of me. But in our conversation, I knew more about something than they did. And that's how they're like, well, tell me more about that. Yeah. Because that's the one thing I've learned. A lot of influencers, we feel like we can't touch them. They're like, they're something in our brains. They think they're like royalty. They're untouchable. But you know what I've learned? If you show that you are just as passionate about the same subject that they're into, that's what they want. That's the credibility factor, that like, you really care about this. They're going to talk to you and they're going to listen to you.
Yep. And to Johnny's, I just want to Johnny's question, your network, don't undervalue the power of your network, because when you want to get to higher level people, when you are connected to 50 people within their circle, you're more trusted to even get there, as opposed to pitching them on a project. How do I get to Tony Robbins? Well, I can tell you, if you're connected to 50 people in his world that he trusts, you are going to elevate in that world. And a lot of people are like, oh, how do I get to him? That's not the point. How do you add value and connect to the people that are around them? And that will build you up in there. I think it's an important point to think about.
Yeah, add value. That is it. How can I add value to someone's life, especially if I want to build a network with them? So it's not about what they can give you. It's about what you can give them. And I think this has been so evident in my life, like what I put out into the world, I put it out there, and for some reason, it just keeps coming back. Like, you don't expect it. You don't give something with the expectation of getting something in return. But if you help enough people, you will just find that people are there to help you when you need it. And that could be sharing your social media post to tell people about this new business that you're doing. It could be buying that first product from. It could be leaving that testimonial or review. I recently sent out 100 emails to pretty much anybody I knew in the personal finance, education, parenting sphere. And I said, hey, I'm releasing this new children's book. Just want to tell you about it. And most of them responded back to say, if you need a review, let me know. If you need me to share this on social media, let me know. Do you want to come on my podcast and talk about it? Just let me know. And I'm blown away by like how supportive and helpful people are. And I think it's because I've given value to them in the past. And now they're like, oh, I just want to give it back to you. All right, so let's bring it to a close there. What are each of you guys working on right now? So I want to give you a couple minutes to tell us a little bit more about your own businesses, what you're doing to add value to people's lives. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first, since I'm at the top. Erica. And so this is exclusive. Like, you all outside of my community are the first to hear that Classroom the CEO in 30 days will be coming out June 10th. So I am super excited about that. That is my big project that I've been working on for a year.
Congratulations.
Now, but we are here. And yes, it will be released June 10th. So I'm super excited about that.
Let's see that cover again. Oh yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, Stephen, what are you working on right now?
I have a summer startup program. We're running a program for any high schoolers that want to start a business this summer. You can learn more at lifeskillsthatmatter.com/summer startup.
Okay, and I realized I was supposed to have a screen ready for that, and that got deleted when I restarted the computer.
We are all good.
I will send that out in an email though at the end to all of you guys who registered. So there'll be the replay as well as any of the links or things we talked about as well.
Well,
All right,
let's go because there's a special offer. If you enroll, Rob's going to send you a discount code to get $50 off.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. Vincent, what are you working on right now besides moving your family to Florida?
House just sold 4 days
Congratulations.
ago. So
Congrats.
not that much of an accomplishment in this market. This is the easiest time to sell.
Did
a
it sell
house.
in like 2 hours?
No, it was getting annoying because the first day is like, you didn't sell it yet. I'm like, it's 1 day, relax. And it was like 4 days it took, but it was great. Yeah, right. I'm practicing what I preach in terms of like sticking with your people. My main thing is focusing on my group, my community. I've built an entrepreneurial mastermind community that's where my focus and time goes, on top of I'm writing my second book. So I'm excited about that, which is the second one is turning out to be harder than the first one. More imposter syndrome that goes into it. So those are the two things that I'm working on.
Okay. And then for me, I'm working on the Simple Startup. I have a new course coming out this summer on June 24th. It's a 6-week course for 10 to 18-year-olds. If you want to start that first business and you want a guide to help take you through it. I think the coolest part though, is the fact that there's a community of people who are doing it the exact same time as you. So there's going to be up to 100 other 10 to 18-year-old entrepreneurs starting at the exact same time. And you're going to be talking back and forth with them, sharing ideas and kind of encouraging each other along the way. So when we talked about surrounding yourself with people who are just like you or who are in the position that you want to be in, this is the place that you find stuff like that. So if you want to check that out, the banner below will give you the information for it. But guys, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your wisdom, your value with everyone who has been watching. If you are watching, I highly recommend you check out each of the speakers here, follow them on social media, let that become part of the group and voices and the people that you listen to on a daily basis. That is a very quick way to just start changing the circle of people that you surround yourself with, is just to follow them on social media, listen to them, watch them on a regular basis. Any final words of wisdom for our viewers?
I'm just so grateful to be part of this. I'm leaving so energized from this conversation, and you just really know amazing people, Rob. I'm so grateful to have met Erica and Vincent, and can't wait to help support you all out.
Vincent, any final words of wisdom?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this. Thanks, Erica. Pleasure to meet you. Stephen as well. This has been just a fantastic hour and a half. I could go longer if you guys wanted to. This is so much fun to do. But thanks for everybody that came on and was listening. And Rob, thanks for inviting me.
No, absolutely. I hope we can do another one during the summer sometime. So maybe we'll check in and see how everyone's businesses are going, and we'll have that like next steps for everyone.
Oh, I love it. Love it. So thank you. Yes, I agree with everyone. Thank you all for inviting me. And Stephen, I have written down, do what you know for who you know. I loved it. And so for those of you thinking about where to start, that's it. That's your answer. Do what you know for who you know. It's that simple.
All right. Well, thank you so much to our panelists. If you are going to start a business, I want you to tell me about it. And you can tell the rest of our guests too, but I want you to make that verbal or written commitment to us, to your friends, put it on social media. Hey guys, I am starting this business. This is what it's going to be. This is what I'm going to do. And then go try it out for a couple of months. And I would love to hear about it. I'd love to hear how it's going. You can reach me at rob@thesimplestartup.com. Big thank you to Choosify and Choosify Foundation for hosting this event today. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you soon.